Hi, beautiful. Welcome. I've been, teaching. It's tax season right now. I'm teaching a whole lot, and a lot of questions that I have been receiving have been about tax protest. So, I don't know how you're feeling right now, but I know I am feeling a lot of discouragement and upset over the Trump administration and the horrors that they're committing right now. And I'm not alone. I know you may be very, very concerned about this stuff too. So I just wanted to talk to you today about this idea of a tax protest. I'm going to, TLDR, I do not think it's a good idea at all. I think it's going to hurt you more than anyone else and not actually do anything positive. So it hurts the wrong person. I understand the impulse and I think it's a good one. And I would rather redirect that energy to a place that's productive and that will actually do the thing that we want to get done. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about the tax protest. First, I just want to say from my own perspective, I am really struggling right now. I'm really struggling. I've been trying to moderate how much noise I take in and try to look only at facts and try to be really careful about not getting swept away with other people's emotional energy and just stay really, really focused on facts and laws. And even with that intention, it's really hard. There's so much noise that people around me legitimately and for good reason are so upset. My brother lost his job due to the Doge horrible horror show, and many people around me are affected very badly. Not to mention that, I'm living in a region that just had a disaster, a horrifying disaster. Hurricane Helene hit us, and I lost my entire studio and my life's work, and many people around me have lost their livelihood. So we're really dependent on that FEMA money, that government block grants coming through, and they're being threatened right now. So I'm personally very affected by what's going on, but I also want to say, I'm making a very deliberate effort not to get swept away in anybody else's emotion. I'm struggling enough with my own, and just to keep it as fact-based as I possibly can. Even with that said, I am not perfect, and I have days that I find just hard to even get through. Not to mention, I just wrote a book and that's coming out in 6 months about taxes and civics, right? And what a moment to put out that book. I'm having all these feelings about that, this wonderful rallying cry for civics at a time where we are dismantling our democracy. And I've had some real emotional journey over that. But ultimately what I come down to is, I believe in civics. Regardless of what's going on in the world, I believe in the rule of law. I do. I really do believe in this wonderful democracy that we have built. And I don't think it should be dismantled and destroyed. And I think there's tremendous value in simply articulating the benefit and the good of our democracy. And yes, our tax system, because they are good. There is so much that's wonderful. It's administered by humans, and humans have a lot of failings, as we can see, including, corruption, cynicism, laziness, all the things. But I think it's a great time to articulate what's valuable because, if we don't believe that our democracy, our country is worth saving, then who's going to fight? Why are we going to protest? Why are we going to actually stand up and put our bodies on the line if we don't actually believe it was good in the first place? My patriotism has been very unpopular with, when I talk about it in a loud way. But quiet or loud, I really believe in our democracy. You can call that patriotism. And I think dismantling our democracy is unbelievably unpatriotic on the other side of that too. I believe in the system and in the rule of law. And I'm here to fight for it and to uphold it. So Why should you even pay taxes in a world where the leaders are so clearly corrupt, themselves not even paying taxes, like very, very obviously dodging taxes and cutting IRS enforcement almost as a taunt to encourage people not to pay taxes? Why in this system should we, a person like you or me, do the right thing and pay our taxes? That's a really legitimate question. So let's get into it. Well, first of all, and this is a personal belief, this is not an objective truth, but I think it's important to uphold your values at all times. And values are different from opinions. Values might cost you, right? Opinions are cheap, and opinions might disappear when it's hard. That is not a value. If it goes away when it's hard, it's not a value, right? A value is something you keep upholding even when it gets hard. So if you value democracy, you value the rule of law, I think following the law is important. I believe in it. Like when my kids come to me with the excuse they do something that is not right, and they come to me with the excuse that everyone else was doing it, they know, they know that they're about to get a rant from mom, right? Because this is one of the things that I think is so important. It's not, seeing people do the wrong thing is not permission to do the wrong thing. And in fact, if you have values, you got to uphold them, even when it's hard. So of course it's tempting to not pay your taxes. I get that. I totally get that. But I think that laws matter, and I think that justice matters. And the way that we say these things matter is by ourselves upholding them and, yes, following the law. I don't think you can make an argument that our democracy is important and our laws matter by breaking the law. I just don't think you can do that. It's hypocritical. That said, I think on the other side of that, the part of taxes, the part of civics that people don't, I think, connect to taxes enough, tax is the intake valve, right? But the output, the distribution of those tax dollars, that's where we elect people to represent us, right? And part of that, electing them to represent us and then lobbying them to do the things we care about, means showing up to town halls, like the one that my Congressman Chuck Edwards had very recently here in Asheville that my family went to. You got to show up to those things. You got to call your congressperson. You have to express, you have to use the power that you do have, and actually be engaged in order to help determine where those tax dollars go and ensure that they do go to the things that you value, right? This is part of the voting process, the organizing process, organizing your neighbors to vote, running, helping candidates that you believe in and support. That's the other side that's so important, right? And when we fall off on engaging in that part of civics, the mandatory part, the tax-paying part, that's always going to be there. You can't get out of that. But the side of it where you organize and you're politically engaged, that is your right. It's a right that I wish everybody exercised, because I think if everybody did exercise it, we would have much more just laws. The more people who pay attention and take action and exercise their power, the more the country is ruled by the people and less by the very, very powerful and the very, very wealthy. So exercising the power you have, I think that is a more effective way to go about political change than, breaking the law with a tax protest. So the thing about a tax protest, and what do I mean when I even say tax protest? What I mean is not paying your taxes because, to make a political statement. The problem with a tax protest in that way, it has very little effect. Okay, there's no form you fill out. There's no official status for a tax protest. It's not an acknowledged part of the law. And so there's no place where you register your complaint. There is no, there's no understanding of I'm doing this in protest or I'm doing it in protest and here's my issue that I care about, right? That's also doesn't exist. So when you do a tax protest, what it looks like from the side of the IRS is just, you're just breaking the law. You're just a tax evader. And that's how you are treated. So ultimately what happens is you get all of the punishment, of not paying your taxes, of evading taxes, right? You get all the punishment and you will pay all the penalties and suffer all the prosecution. And none of the positive side of what you're trying to do, registering your complaint, none of that will go through. None of that will land anywhere close to where you want it to land. So the much more effective tool is, and I know this isn't maybe what you like or want, but it's true. This is how our democracy is built. The more effective thing is to use the power you do have and call/harass. I don't mean really harass, but like call, be persistent calling your members of Congress, your senator, your congressperson, your local representatives. Don't forget your state. Your state has a lot of power too in a world, I believe it's only like a quarter of all the laws that affect you on a daily basis are federal laws. Most of the laws that affect you in your daily life are local and state laws. So your state legislature and local politics really matter too. And people forget that. They don't spend enough time on those systems. So even when your congressperson doesn't feel very responsive, doing work at your state level might actually make an enormous difference. And I really recommend it because you have more power on the local level than you probably realize you do, because not a lot of people are engaging in the way that they really should. And so those who do engage tend to have voices that are a little amplified. And this is all the more reason that if you have been a little hesitant on this, if you feel maybe like you're not so sure this is for you, that's why I advocate that you take some action, look up your local representatives and actually get involved, call them, attend a town hall event, attend a coffee, see what their event schedule is like and attend something, learn a little bit about your local politics, right? So when there's a tax protest, you get hurt. It hurts you definitively, but it doesn't hurt the government that you're trying to hurt. Right? And it doesn't register the protest that you're trying to register. The IRS, when you fail to pay your taxes, has a lot of power over you. It can garnish your wages. It can lien your property. It can put you in prison. And it also, and this will definitely happen, give you failure to file and failure to pay penalties, plus interest until you actually pay your bill. And I just want to illustrate for you some numbers around what that pain could look like. All right. So I took these numbers from an article I read on Morningstar.com, Market Watch by Beth Pinsker. So I'm giving credit here. But here are some numbers about a tax protest. So let's just say that in theory you are, and I'm going to use nice round numbers, you have $100,000 in earnings, right? I realize you may not have that much, but I wanted to use a round number. So if you earned $100,000 and took the standard deduction, which most of you do, and you don't have kids or child tax credit, anything like that, so a pretty simple individual return, you would owe $13,620 in tax, approximately. Okay, so between $13,000 and $14,000 in tax. If you were to engage in a tax protest and just fail to file your taxes, fail to pay your taxes, you would incur a $571 underpayment penalty, plus you would file a failure to pay penalty. So I want you to understand, failure to pay penalties are higher than underpayment penalties, right? Not paying at all is a big deal. So the failure to pay penalty on top of that $571 underpayment penalty would be $3,405. That's just right off the bat. And that number is up to 25% of your tax due as just a penalty for not paying. On top of those numbers, so we're already up to about $4,000 that it would cost you in this scenario to not pay your taxes. On top of that, there's daily interest. And at the current rates, they're 7%. So interest rates are high right now. And one of the consequences is your daily interest on unpaid taxes is high right now. So 7% until you pay. So if you don't pay for 4 years, you're going to have daily interest every day, 7% for 4 years. That's going to add up. Okay. So these are just the amounts, that $4,000 of combined penalty plus the daily interest, which is on top, that's a lot of money. That's costing you a lot of money for a tax protest that doesn't register anywhere in the government. It just looks like you breaking the law, and it has a consequence, financial penalties for you. Okay. If you then multiply that or stretch that out over multiple years, those are going to happen. Those penalties will happen each year that you don't pay. And also the single year that you haven't paid, if you don't make that payment for multiple years, that interest is going to keep going until your payment date. And that might be years. So you got to really watch out when you don't pay your taxes. The law is very clear that you're required to pay your taxes. And when you don't do it, those penalties do not stop, and they can really add up. All right. So I just want to make it clear how bad for you it is, how much it punishes you specifically when you do a tax protest. It's something that I think is sort of gets the system backwards. It punishes the protester, and it does not punish the government that it's intending to protest. All right. A tax protest also really plays into the hands of a long-running right-wing strategy to starve the government of money and use that as an excuse to cut social programs like healthcare and education, right? The Bush administration did this. They ran up the deficit with wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. And then cut a bunch of social programs, and they didn't have to make arguments about the merits of those social programs. They simply pointed to the budget and said, oh, we're fiscally responsible. We got to cut this, right? It becomes an excuse. So it can actually hurt the very programs that you are aiming to preserve, that you want more of. It can hurt those very things. This is why I think a tax protest is so counterproductive and not the thing to do, okay? So here are some places to channel your energy. A much more effective place to channel your energy is to simply exercise the powers that you do have that you probably haven't exercised enough. Contacting your representatives. Yes, at the federal level, also at the state level, also at the local level. Contact your representatives. Tell them what's on your mind. Unlike a tax protest where there's no way to register what your issue is, your representatives do register what your issue is. They keep tallies of how many taxpayers call in or email. They actually note a phone call actually is weighted more highly than an email because it's a little harder to do. It takes a little more commitment. And for that reason, they're weighted more strongly. So I do recommend a phone call. But if you can't do a phone call, send an email. And they will tally how many people are concerned about that issue. So this is something you can organize your friends and neighbors around, and you can actually start campaigns to lobby your representatives about issues you care about. When there's enough critical mass coming towards the representatives, they tend to respond, right? So it's this is how democracy is set up. This is how it's supposed to work. And I'm afraid not enough of us do it, but it is a real place where you do have power and where the issues you're concerned about get noted. I also think that the act of paying taxes is something that can really empower you to feel the right to lobby your representatives, right? Let it empower you to demand that your money be spent according to your values. That's part of the deal of paying taxes and why it's so important, all right? Also, the 2026 midterms are coming up. They're going to be our largest check on this administration. If you disagree with it the way that I do, then the 2026 midterms are a big deal, and they're a place to put political effort, okay? Whether that is helping identify new candidates to run, supporting those candidates, campaigning for those candidates, organizing friends and neighbors about issues that those candidates are going to represent you on. That's a way to spend your energy that I think is really effective. Not to mention local politics, and the timelines for local politics might be more immediate than 2026. They might be coming up sooner than that. So absolutely, that to me is the most productive way to channel this energy, and I encourage you absolutely to do it. What a world we are in. It is scary out there right now, and I just wanted to be here as a person on the tax side to give you kind of the practical sense of what a tax protest actually does, why I think it's counterproductive, and where I think your energy is better spent. Please feel free to share your thoughts with me. You can reach out to me on Instagram at Sunlight Tax. I would love to know what you are doing. I would very happily share if you have been finding productive ways to spend your emotional energy, your protest against this administration, and you want to share with me and I can share with others. I am very happy to receive that. I would love to know. So reach out to me at Sunlight Tax. I will warn you that because of my own humanity and inability to just take on loads and loads of emotional input, I would encourage you to keep it as based in facts as possible and as away from, angry emotion as you possibly can, because I am, I'm actively deleting some of the more angry stuff that comes towards my Instagram. I just want to give you that warning up front. And I hope that you are also taking protective measures towards your own heart and brain and focus as well. Because it's a hard time out there. And I think we all need support and empathy, forgiveness, and understanding. So I want to encourage that feeling in you. I certainly want to tell you that I'm also a human and I need it myself. All right. So I hope this episode has been helpful today. I know it's a little bit to the side of what I'm normally talking about at this time of year, but I know as the tax deadline is coming up, I know that this is on the mind of a lot of you and you're thinking about it, wondering if this is something that you should consider or not. So if you found this episode insightful, if you found it helpful in any way, I don't do any advertising on this podcast, and you sharing episodes is the only way this podcast grows. So please feel free to share it with a friend if you found it valuable. And also tomorrow I'm doing a free class. Yes, it is my sort of standard hour of teaching, kind of systems you need to make your taxes simpler and also to grow your financial freedom fund. That class is happening tomorrow. I think it's more relevant than ever because now is the time that you need financial security. You need to be able to focus, and having your tax systems be more simple and streamlined is a way to gain a lot of focus in your life. I can say this from personal experience and also from clients' experience. So if you're interested in making your taxes easier and growing your financial freedom fund, absolutely come to that class. It's free. I'll be talking about the systems that you need. I'll be talking about compound interest, teaching you some stuff about how, retirement account math works. And I'll also be talking about my program, which is built to help fix these things and set these things up for you. If you want to hear that, come to that class. You can register at go.sunlighttax.com/free. All of you, I'm sending you a big hug. I want to just send you warmth and kindness and facts, and I hope you are well and taking care of yourself and your focus and your attention right now. Go hug a friend, and I will see you next week. Bye. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, be sure to like, leave a comment, and subscribe to my channel. I'm so grateful for that. This video is for education and entertainment only. Nothing in this episode should be taken as individual tax or financial advice. You can find all the tools, books, and links I reference at sunlighttax.com/podcast.